Oh, I mean, I love your work. Obviously,
Oh,
you've worked on a lot of shows that I've enjoyed greatly. So I wanted to get started with, um, when you get a project like this, when you're coming in doing episode five, what's your sort of relationship with the writer, and like, how are you like breaking, because you're coming in mid-season and you have to like obviously carry it into the back half of these episodes. So what's your sort of relationship with the writer? Are you like working with them throughout the scripting process, or are you just getting the script, giving your notes, and then moving from there?
my relationship it's a little bit different, I think, than a lot of freelance directors that come on board because I'm also a producer and editor on the show.
Mhm.
So I start from editing. As soon as we get dailies on the first episode, I'm working, and when episode five came, I get the script. They just give me the script and they say, hey, you're going to be doing this one. And I loved the script right from the start. It's a great, I mean, there's so much comedy and there's so much visual effects in this episode. We did some really, really great stuff with, this is the first time Nathan and the backup are, meet face to face. So, you know, getting the script, the first thing I do is I take a lot of notes and I write down a lot of questions. And some of them are story points, some of them are just logic questions, and then a lot of them are production questions. How are we going to do this? Here's my suggestions, and then waiting to get feedback from Greg Daniels and the writer, and even just going off to production heads as well, like the cinematographer, VFX, production designer. That's really what I do, and I just start prepping and figuring out how are we going to shoot this. I feel like in a lot of ways, episode five was the most complicated episode of the season, just because of the nature of having a lot of scenes with doubles with Nathan and the Nathan backup together. But it was also a blast. I mean, it really was a lot of fun. And for me, I come from I love, like superhero movies and sci-fi movies. So anytime I get to work with visual effects, I'm really excited. And for me, this was okay, great. I get to play in a completely, in some scenes, a complete green screen environment where and these are the kind of things I get to see when I'm watching like behind the scenes of an Avengers movie. So it was really enjoyable to, okay, this is how this works. And really, I mean, pushing the envelope for VFX in our series.
Yeah, absolutely. And then since you do have a lot of visual effects in this episode versus like something like when you're working on The Office or Parks and Rec or something like that, where this is it's kind of a workplace comedy on some level, but it's also there's all these sci-fi elements. So like from the moment you start your episode to the end, like what's the sort of time length it takes you because you have to incorporate the visual effects. Like how long does it like start to finish almost?
Oh my God. I mean, you start prepping well before you start shooting, at least. I mean, just even as a just asking the questions, like it's kind of an unofficial prep of like, hey, here's the script, just take a look at it, just so when your prep does start, you can hit the ground running. So you prep, unofficially for maybe a couple weeks, then you get there and you have your official prep. So you're in the field, you're going to locations, you're scouting, you're looking at VFX things constantly. We had discussed, we have a scene with people walking, a walk and talk with doubles, and it was like, well, do we shoot in a big stage and have them walking, and then is this motion control, or is this on a treadmill and we can just kind of lock down the camera and add some moves later, do a few specials. And then you shoot, and you're shooting 7 8 days. Some scenes straggle just because of the heavy schedule with other episodes. You'll overlap, and okay, we're going to have this location for this episode and this location for this episode, so why don't we push it and do them both on the same day, things like that. So you're trying to be efficient, and I mean, these are just behind the scenes things. I don't know how exciting they are, but for me, it is a lot of it is getting the footage back then and editing, and it is incorporating the visual effects, and that takes a long time because you're doing your an editor's on all these episodes. You do an editor's assembly, you're doing a director's cut where you're okay. Now I can start to tweak and lose some things and sharpen some moments, and you're starting to get in. Visual effects is like, what can we see? What can we see? We want to start creating stuff for you, and then by the time, I mean, honestly, you finish editing. It's by the time Greg comes in and you're working, doing your producer's cut, going to Amazon, going back and forth, and still tweaking these visual effects. It's almost 6, 7, 8 months later. So, and then then you're into the sound mix, and you're still tweaking visual effects even after that. And it takes a long time. Upload is a show that takes a long time. The Office,
Yeah.
we could shoot that, be on the air. We could shoot scenes and be on the air 2 days later if we
Yeah.
had to. Like, okay, this, I mean, and I feel like that's happened on episodes where we were waiting for one actor or a guest actor or something, and we'd have the whole episode built and then just this actor, and we'd shoot, edit it, mix, get it, deliver to NBC.
Yeah, no, it's kind of jaw-dropping how many visual effects are in this show. Just like the little tiny minor details. But so like when you mentioned it, like this is the big episode where Nathan meet. What kind of discussion went into like how that sort of meet? Because it's been teased for like 4 episodes, and then it's just like all of a sudden on the FaceTime call. And so like what kind of went into that, and then what was it like? Actually, I'll follow up after.
I mean, to me, the first time when we see them talking together is that they're, it's kind of a shock that, to everybody, to real, it's a shock to real Nathan to suddenly see that the backup sees him and that he's on the call. And then it's a shock to Luke in this situation as well. And they're all kind of tangled together. And even it's a shock to backup Nathan. And I don't know if I don't know how much I can give away here, but they'll tell you if you can say this or not. But backup Nathan doesn't even know he's a backup, which which just adds to the comedy and his his motivation and how he's feeling, because he thinks the other guy, he thinks real Nathan is the backup. But for me, the real time is when they meet face to face in person. I mean, that was just kind of almost like a tease, seeing them, FaceTiming together. And then when they meet face to face, and how are they gonna be? Are they competitive? Are they gonna get along? What's it like? And I think that's a really fun. The first time they meet is a really interesting and fun scene, and it certainly was fun to shoot. And then you kind of see how their relationship goes after that, and what it's like to, I mean, imagine suddenly you have almost like a duplicate of yourself in the world, and how does that feel?
Yeah, absolutely. And then so like I think a couple times I noticed where you're spotlighting each different Nathan while they're like talking to each other, even though they're in the same scene, but you split it up. But then before you reach a point where it's like they have to be in the same frame. So like how were like I think you mentioned like how are they actually walking, or what's the sort of how's the double trick actually work? So can you break that sort of down?
Yeah, I mean, we there were a couple different ways to do stuff. But we really wanted to push it in a lot of ways to have them in the same frame, even and sometimes, I mean, look, the easiest way to do it is to have a locked frame and just, okay, here's one guy, and then split screen, and then the other guy comes in. But it's more fun when the camera's moving, because it's more of a trick. Oh, how are they doing this? They're really in the same space. And I watched a lot of things. I watched some just to get some samples and examples of doubles and blocking, and we shot with a body double, so Robbie could react with someone, and then and just run the lines and the pacing, and then we did a bunch of different things. So sometimes, yeah, we would do a lock off shot. Sometimes we would just kind of move the camera around, and just kind of, okay, here's Nathan here. The camera swishes, and then here's the other Nathan. We'd go back and forth. And then the fun stuff was really, doing motion control or doing little motion things like, hey, we can get away with this with a little, we can put a little move on. So even though there's, one character here and the other one's going to be there, that's really where that's really where you sell that they're two individual people. What's funny is like watching it, after it's edited or even in the process, I'm like, oh, they have really good chemistry with each other. Like like the two
Yeah,
Nathans, there's a lot of times where you forget that they're two, that it's the same person. And I might add in the script, I feel like they forgot that also because they're like, what? There's just a page of two people talking. And it's like, no, we have to shoot it double the amount of time. Like it's a
yeah,
clothes change. Do you know what I mean? Like nobody took that into account. I feel like when we first got the script, I'm like, we need more time for these things. When there's anytime there's a scene with the two of them, and every setup is like, okay, you got to run it twice, twice the amount of times because you're shooting, two different people.
yeah, absolutely. Um, and so like there's multiple arcs. There's a lot of dramatic moments, but then there's also you have this sort of like subplot with AI guy going out into the real world and sort of like them doing I guess trial runs.
Yeah.
And so how much fun is it working with I think it's Owen and well, shooting just like because it's very sincere like how that sort of arc wraps up versus sometimes it's like there's some really like hardcore humor like some of the stuff Allegra says but like this guy is just so sincere so like what is it like sort of the contrast between shooting these characters.
I mean, Owen, so yeah, working with Owen Daniels was great. It's
Yeah,
the first time I feel like in the series where he's out in the, obviously out in the world, but also kind of solo. A lot of times he has scenes with other actors, for the lead cast, and this time we really got to showcase him having kind of his own, really his own storyline and interacting with, completely different people. He's hysterical. He has great comedic instincts. Um, he is there are times where he comes up with things and you just sit there and you're cracking up. Just very, very fun. I mean, I can't say enough about the entire cast. I mean, everybody just delivers. They're all pros. So it's, they're all, I mean, they're fantastic to work with. We really, I mean, Greg Daniels really took his time with assembling this cast, and we didn't shoot the pilot until he felt we were ready, that we had the cast, and it's a process. I mean, anyway, sorry, going back to working.
you're fine.
I mean, it's a pleasure. Like I said, it's a pleasure working with everybody, and everybody has their strengths and their, like I said, I mean, working with Owen, he comes up with things, and he has no problem. He'll run take after take after take. Allegra, well, we can get to her, but I mean, she's just fantastic, and she comes up with things. I'm always amazed, what actors can do. Good actors with just how they can think on their feet. There, a lot of them have can improvise. I mean, our entire cast can, which is great. But even just how they can just even make subtle tweaks to a scene, like run it once, run it twice, and then just the little things that they come up with. And you can always ask them, hey, can you try something like this, or can you come up with something? And they can do it. Like the skill set is, I'm always impressed.
Yeah, no, I do a lot of rewinding just to hear some of the lines again because the delivery is just so good. But
Yeah.
this has been awesome, Dave. Thank you so much, and I really appreciate. I mean, I love upload, so I can't wait for season
Oh,
four.
awesome.
After, I mean, I don't want to spoil what happens, but I can't wait for season four. So,
Yeah.
but thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate
My
it.
pleasure. It's great talking to you. And
Good to meet you
yeah,
too, and thank you, Molly.